Tony DeWitt here, Missouri appellate attorney, retired. None of what follows is legal advice. I'm here to do some video for you today to talk about an interesting subject on the law, and here it is. Today we're going to take a look at some testimony from this murder trial involving Melody Farris. And I want you to pay attention to this testimony and think about it thematically. Think about the theme that is being broadcast in this testimony.
Do you know what caused that change?
Yes. Basically, my mother began having an affair with Ted Wiley, and when my dad found out about it, that's pretty much when things went south.
Okay, let's talk about Ted Wiley for a little bit. Did you see Ted and Melody around each other in the late 2000s?
Yes.
Did you see them interact with one another?
Yes.
And did anything stand out to you at that time?
Yes.
Tell the jury about that.
I had ridden up to Florence, Alabama with my mother. I was actually picking up a vehicle that was my grandmother's, and we stayed at Ted's house, and he was sitting next to my mother. I was laying on the couch. Can't remember if I was still watching TV or if I was kind of in and out of drifting off to sleep. And I remember Ted and my mother sitting next to each other, and I just kind of thought it was just weird and uneasy. But this was actually November of 2008. So now that I think about that, yeah, it was November 2008. So I think that would probably be when my suspicions really began to arise.
And you had mentioned that your mom moved in with Ted, and that's the information that you had at the time.
Yes.
How long did she stay gone?
It was quite a while. It was, certainly longer than a month. I want to say it could have been like 3 months. We couldn't really get a hold of her during that time. And, it was so long ago, it's a little bit of a blur, but it was a good chunk of time for sure.
At that time, did you know the state of your parents' relationship?
I know they didn't like each other very much.
Why did you think that?
Well, there had been different episodes, with, he had told me about a gentleman named Rusty Barton. He had told me numerous things. There was a lot of things why I thought that.
He confided in you about their relationship?
Somewhat, yes. I think he might have confided in some of the other children more than me.
Like who?
Emily, Scott, maybe Amanda. I don't know about Amanda.
Did you know how they lived physically in the home? In the farm?
Of course, yes.
And how did they live?
My father slept downstairs in a bedroom in the basement. My mother slept in the master bedroom. They still shared a bathroom. My father still showered in the master bathroom. He still had his main closet there, but they slept on different floors.
We had planned a dinner with my mom, and I believe I knew Martha Jane was going to go, and they were going to drive up from Tullahoma to Franklin, and we were going to go to dinner. And when my mom arrived at our apartment, Rusty was with her, and we did not know that Rusty was going to be with her, so that was very uncomfortable. I can remember how upset my sister was about the situation. It was very odd to see him there. And then when we went to dinner, they sat next to each other, and just the interactions between the two were of a couple. Like there was, like I felt like under the table leg touching, like getting really close together to talk, just like whispering to each other, like into each other's ears. Like it was so uncomfortable that after they left, after the dinner, my sister was like, we need to tell Daddy. Like, we need to tell Daddy that he was here tonight. And we had a conversation on whether we should tell our dad or not. I mean, it was that uncomfortable.
You have a son testifying against his mother about his mother's relationship with his father. And it casts her in a very bad light. You have a daughter testifying against her mother about her mother's relationship with her father. And again, it casts everything in a really bad light. Several years ago, the state of Florida put Casey Anthony on trial. And I'm pretty sure if she had an overdue library book someday, the people in Florida would have put that on because it made her look bad. And time after time after time, they proved that Casey Anthony was a liar. In fact, that's what she was convicted of. But they never proved she was a murderer because they kept proving her character, not the act. Well, that's what I think is going on here. They have a shell inside the rib cage that killed this particular gentleman. They have his body discovered in the burn pile, and the initial thought was it must have been suicide, but later they found in a forensic examination the bullet, and as a result of that, well, they charged Melody Farris with murder. And I think the main issue that the state has a problem with is putting Melody in charge of a pistol at the time and at the place where the man was killed. There is absolutely, at least as far as I have seen so far, not a great deal of forensic evidence that ties her directly to what happened to Mr. Farris. And I want to clarify that. They have some forensic evidence, right? They have blood droplets, and they say that it appears that somebody tried to clean up blood. But there was a year that went by between the shooting and the arrest, and it didn't look to me like they had done a very thorough review of the house prior to waiting the year. In other words, as soon as his body was found, they didn't go through and search the house completely, right? Because they thought that he had died, I think, by accident. And now they say, well, this looks like blood, and this looks like blood, and this looks like blood. But if it was blood, you would think they would have blood tests to prove that. Plus, any number of other things could account for those blood drops. He could have cut his hand the day before. He could have cut his hand or a foot or stepped on a rusty nail 6 or 7 weeks earlier. A blood droplet on the floor does not tell you, it doesn't have a timer that says, I was dropped here on May 17th or July 3rd. It doesn't do that. And so, even though they have evidence of perhaps foul play, at least blood, what they don't have is anything that ties it directly to Melody Farris. And I see that as a problem. So, what the state is trying to do is prove up a circumstantial case, and they're doing it by attacking her character and essentially by attacking her morality, so to speak, in terms of having an affair and sending ugly text messages and things like that. Which, you know, how a lawyer decides to try a case is a strategic decision, and it's not one that I really feel competent to give a whole lot of feedback on in this particular case because I don't know the facts that well. But I was just struck in the early days of this trial with how much effort is being made to paint Melody Farris as a monster and as a philanderer, as somebody who couldn't be trusted, as somebody who withdrew large amounts of money from her husband's bank account, which I would note was a joint bank account, and so she had every reason and every right to access that money. And I would also point out that it's not doing Melody any good in front of this jury when every time they show her face on this camera, and I assume is she's not really changing much over the course of the trial, she sits there and she looks like a dour, mean old woman. Now that's just how she looks. She may be, the most wonderful person in the world, but she comes across as sort of like, the evil stepmother. I don't know. You tell me what you think. Drop it in the comments down below. I'd love to know what you think about that aspect of it. But I think that is also hurting her, whereas the ability to not have evidence that ties her directly to the crime, I think, has been very helpful for her. The things that the state is putting on here and putting up in terms of evidence, I have not seen a direct correlating link to the violence that was done to Mr. Farris. Now, maybe that's coming. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. Maybe it's coming. But right now, I don't see it. And yeah, people say dumb things all the time. They say things like, I can't wait till he's dead. You know, sometimes when you say that and people hear it, they remember it, and then it makes you look really bad. But it doesn't make you a murderer. They have to be able to tie her to the actual killing in order to get a conviction here. And I don't know that they're going to be able to do that. But at any rate, that's what I wanted you to think about today. Why are they spending all of this time with the family members, essentially painting Melody Farris as a monster? Is it because she's really a monster? Or is it because they don't have the goods and they want an angry jury to make a decision based on anger and retribution, as opposed to making a more logical decision based on evidence? I don't know. Like I said, I'll have to wait till all the evidence is in and see what everybody has, what all of the testimony shows. But I think this is not going particularly well for the state if this is the evidence they have to put in. And I would also point out that I'm pretty sure that the jurors on their way home are stopping and buying No Dose by the bushel basketful because, like I said earlier, none of these lawyers knows how to ask a question.
And you're under oath, and you've sworn to God to tell the truth. But you do believe in your heart that your mother loved your father. Yes?
At a point in her life, yes.
At a point in her life.
Mm-hmm.
So how about on July the 3rd of 2018? Do you believe that your mother loved your father?
No.
And there we have the trial lawyer breaking the number 2 rule of trial. Now, number 1 rule of trial is don't honk off the judge. But the number 2 rule of trial is don't ask a question that you do not already know the answer to. And when you do something like this, that does not help your client at all. Anyway, that's what I have for you today. Thank you so much for being here. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments down below. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And of course, if you want to, you can email me at the address above. Do a kindness for someone today. Step out of your comfort area and walk across the hall. Do something nice for somebody. Because when you do nice things for other people that are unexpected and meant to be unrewarded. You reward yourself with that really good feeling of helping other people, and we can make the world a better place, one kind act at a time. Have a terrific day. Come on back down here tomorrow. Catch me at the beach. We'll talk about something else. Hey, as I said at the beginning, none of what I said is legal advice, but let me tell you what, the stuff that's going to be right up here, these are the things that YouTube thinks you might be interested in going forward. Have a terrific day.